We'll talk more about that game a little bit later on, because right now we're going to concentrate on Villa Park. Aston Villa twice came from behind in a thrilling Premier League contest against Crystal Palace to earn a draw and end their losing run. Ismail Assar opened the scoring for the Eagles, and despite Ollie Watkins' equaliser, Palace led before the break as Justin Devenny grabbed his first ever Premier League goal in another counter-attack. Substitute Ross Barkley equalised for the Villains in the second half, who had missed a first-half penalty, we should say. And though Villa avoided a fifth consecutive defeat in all competitions, Unai Emery's side are now winless in their last 6. Speaking to talkSPORT, Emery was frustrated with how his side played and admitted they must improve at both ends of the pitch.
We considered as well something more the second half in the transition and in the corners, but a few chances they had. And overall in 90 minutes, I think more or less we had to try to reduce some mistakes, and this is the way, trying to play more or less, getting confidence again with the players and getting chances like we had, and normally we are going to recover again our confidence and our way.
OK, so it's a point that moves Villa now up to 8th in the table. They were at one stage 7th, but because of Tottenham's victory later on, it means they are 8th currently in the table. As we mentioned, they're obviously delighted to end that losing run that they were on, but without a win in their last 6 overall. And their high line, they were playing a really high line, weren't they, Aston Villa? And that was often exploited by Palace, who were able to get in behind with high, direct sort of play that they were utilising.
Do you know what? You've made a really big point, because if you're talking about the Achilles heel of Villa, it is their high line. Because one thing, someone like Ismail Assar, who scored the first goal yesterday, what he wants is space to run into and get behind the back line. That's exactly what he wants. So when you play a high line against very quick players, now you could compound that with saying no Konza, no Tyrone Mings yesterday as well, so you're changing the centre halves, and you could argue, well, these two might be first choice on any given day anyway. But that continual high line, it's been quite costly for Villa, because they do so many good things, and they're a dangerous side. They've got lots of flair in their team with Morgan, Rogers, and we could talk about Mings and McGinn. They can create problems. Bailey as well, you can throw in there. Just that high line feels very costly to me for Villa.
Well, it is.
Not always. There's games they can do it, I think, when the opposition doesn't have blinding or ridiculous speed in their side.
Well, it is a vulnerability. It is an issue for them, because they've only kept 1 clean sheet in the last 17. They've also conceded 31 goals in that same time. Only Wolves and West Ham have conceded more. Yeah.
So it is something, when you watch it, it's quite alarming that you think, it's been as good as Villa have been under Unai Emery. They have been fantastic, and it's got them a long way in Champions League football, and what they've done in the Premier League. There is that, you just think, is there certain teams you shouldn't be playing such a high line against?
Well, like you say, Sawyer was delighted to have that space to run onto, and it was brilliant. In the first goal, he was able to do that, and the second goal as well, likewise, again, a high line that they were able to take advantage of, and Sawyer breaking away again. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to be clever here, and just because they conceded that goal, but there's a part of me that think, is there not a line where you can go, let's just drop 2 yards, they've got real pace in their forward line. And if that's what they're looking to do, is getting behind. Because Palace played a 3-4-2-1 yesterday, which is telling you that they're going to break from midfield, basically. Runners are going to try and get behind you.
It's a great point for Crystal Palace, because they were missing some real key personnel. Eze, Nketiah, Wharton, Kamada as well. Probably all of whom, if they were fit, would probably start that game. So a great point for them. And they might have had to change their style of play a little bit with that more direct, over-the-top type play. But it caused Villa all sorts of problems, and like we've already alluded to there. But it's a point that doesn't move them out of the relegation zone. And once more, they've only had 1 win in 12. So they'll be disappointed that twice they've taken the lead, that they weren't able to hang on. I know you've already talked about them before, but are you still concerned about them? Or is this a point that they can take something away from and think, there's something to build on there?
Well, I've had concerns, because I think a lot's gone wrong for Palace this season.
Yeah.
But a Palace fan can take a bit of heart out of the fact that against Villa, they've put in a cup, not only in a cup, but put in a good performance in the Premier League. They're going to have to turn that. I was at Selhurst Park when they played Manchester United, and it could have been 3-0 down at half-time for Manchester United. It could have easily, and they ended up getting getting a draw out of it. I just think they need a little bit more. If you said to me one of the teams that need to do a bit of business in January, I would definitely say Palace. I just think they need a couple of more bodies.
Where do you think they
just
need to bolster?
generally a couple of more bodies in the lineup that give them a little bit in different areas of the pitch. You know, certainly forward wise, I've always felt Mateta is never going to be the ultimate goal scorer. I just think he's a streaky player, and that he can lead the line well.
What we saw last season,
I don't think
is an anomaly.
He's not going to
really
replicate that. You know, sometimes forwards don't have that year-by-year record, and he can lead the line well and score goals, but I don't think it's going to ever be numbers that are required. And you know, they've lost some good players. You know, we talk about Wilf Zaha. You know, he wasn't that long ago he was at the club. You know, he was a terrific player for Palace over years. They lost AU in the forward area. You know, so AU was another player. He's not great numbers, but he always chipped in somewhere along the line. And I just feel they need to add a little bit more of a competition for places now, more than anything.
And just quickly back onto Villa then, as I say, they haven't won in their last 6, which will be a bit of a concern for Unai Emery.
Yeah.
Is it just the season where we're at right now is taking its toll a little bit with the Champions League football? Because I mentioned that, but you said yesterday, you mentioned, well, they had European football last season.
Yeah, they did.
And they were still able to secure Champions League football.
Yeah, Villa are not quite as good as they were last year. For whatever reason, they're just not quite got that edge about them. They're still a good side, and I still think they'll be, you know, close to top 6. But I think there's just not quite as good.
Well, Ollie Watkins scored, a player that we mentioned yesterday.
Well, he's going to be...
gone through a bit of a barren patch for him, but scored, I think, his first goal in 5.
Yeah, well, he was instrumental last year, the reason why they got the Champions League football. And he has, you know, what did he get last year in the end? That 20, something like that? Did he get 20?
Would have been around that mark.
Yeah, around 20 Premier League goals. I think it'll be harder for him this year to get that amount, but I still think he's capable of getting plus 15.
Okay. So the points were shared then at Villa Park in a 2-2 draw.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.